I bet you can't pick all those groceries up.
I bet I definitely can. Told you.
Don't do that. It'll stunt your growth.
No.
Most millennials grew up hearing that lifting stunts their growth. It makes them stiff and slow. It just leads to them getting injured. Those are good intentions, but it's garbage advice. So let's set the record straight. Number one, lifting actually improves bone mineral density and other connective tissue qualities like strength and stiffness in your tendons and ligaments, which can protect those tissues from injury. And obviously, lifting makes you stronger, and depending on how you execute it, it can also help make you more explosive and athletic. And those are things that you would want to have, especially if you are an athlete. So let's dive into this. My name is Connor Adams, and I'm a strength coach for young athletes as well as jiu-jitsu athletes, young and old. I own Power Stone Strength and Performance, which is a Florida-based strength and conditioning company. All right, first up, lifting stunts your growth. I want to thoroughly explain why lifting is actually a really good thing, especially for a growing body, and shed some light on this myth and why it's really just silly. So first up, the myth surrounding lifting stunting your growth essentially just points at lifting somehow negatively influencing growth or will directly cause damage to something like a growth plate in young people. And this is problematic thinking, but it's also problematic communication, especially if this is going from parent to child or coach to child, because it's only going to lead to fear and avoidance of something that is really beneficial to a growing body. And if you are a parent of a young athlete watching this, it's really important that you understand what activities are actually posing more risk for your child and how lifting weights really isn't all that risky. So what does pose more risk than the weight room? Well, maybe a surprise, but it's actually the sport they're playing, especially if they're playing a field sport. Sports are often chaotic, they're unpredictable, and a lot of the forces that your kid's body experiences in whatever sport that is unanticipated. They're usually not expecting it right away. And you can't really just predict everything that happens on the field. You might understand there's gonna be a winner and a loser, but everything in between that is really, really hard to maintain control of. And there is data to support this, so if you're interested in reading more about it, I will drop the link down in the description. Now look, just because there's risk of injury in sports, it doesn't mean that we're going to avoid sports and not let our kids participate in them. We want to watch our children learn skills. We want to watch them improve, compete, win, lose, all of that stuff, right? Because it contributes to their overall development, which is very, very important. But for some reason, the weight room has gotten a lot of bad press over the last few decades. But when you really think about it, and I want you to think about this, you would tell your kid to go wrestle another kid, for example, and run the risk of having a falling body collide with theirs, which is incredibly dangerous in the sport of wrestling or jiu-jitsu. But strapping a barbell to your kid and telling them to go up and down in a squat or pick the barbell up off the floor in a deadlift or press it off their chest, somehow that is the more dangerous thing. Like, that one for the longest time just never really made sense to me. And one of the main reasons that the weight room is so safe, and it's actually much safer than the sport they're playing, is because of how predictable the weight room is. If your kid is working with an experienced coach, then that coach is going to be in tune with how well they move, how strong they are, and they're going to help your child develop in the weight room and become stronger at a rate that is respective of their level of ability, right? So they're going to help be in charge of load selection, but also load management and making sure that your kid is not being subject to too much stress all at once in the weight room or trying to lift loads that they're just not ready for. And there's so many situations like that we could dive into, but to shorten it, the reality is that the weight room is just a very predictable and controllable space, especially if your kid is working with an experienced coach. So let's talk about bone health. Lifting is very protective of bones. There's this thing called mechanical tension, and it's one of the things that actually promotes better and increased bone mineral density. And that's something that's required in order to stimulate that type of bone growth and remodeling. So if your kid is playing in a sport where their bones might be subject to injury or they're at an increased risk of injury, wouldn't it make more sense that they have this sort of experience that allows them to add a protective layer to their bones, well, they can get that from lifting. And yes, lifting heavy, of course, when they're ready for it, but those are the things that can contribute to a more resilient and injury-resistant body. Okay, next up, lifting makes you stiff and slow. This one is kind of interesting because in your head, the thought that most people, conjure is that muscles get bigger, therefore they get stiffer and slower. They're not going to move as well. Only this thinking is half wrong. Resistance training does have the potential to increase or decrease flexibility, sure. But let's talk about how it can help improve it. The important thing is in the execution. You want to make sure that when your kid is lifting, and you, if you lift, that you take those lifts through a full range of motion. So if your kid is consistently cutting things short and not giving themselves a chance to experience deep ranges of motion, well then sure, the muscle will adapt in that range of motion, and there is a chance there that they may become a little bit less flexible. And an example of this is like if they're lifting with a lot of machines that don't promote a deep range of motion, then there's a chance that flexibility might not be improved. But when they do lift with a full range of motion, the muscles are basically being informed that, hey, this range of motion, this position is okay. And the added benefit there that they get from resistance training through a full range of motion that they don't get through static stretching alone is that they're improving their strength and tissue quality and resilience in that lengthened position. That is not to say that static stretching is not important. It is, because the lifts that you engage in the gym might not necessarily cover the entire basis of flexibility needs based on the needs of your young athlete. Also, lifting and soreness, that's a temporary stiffness. That's usually not something that sticks around forever. So that is more like perceived stiffness after a hard day of lifting, especially if it's a new and novel stimulus. That's normal, but again, it's temporary and it doesn't directly influence those long-term outcomes for flexibility. So when kids train with me, we encourage deep squats. We do a full range of motion on things like the Romanian deadlift. We also do a lot of deep trunk rotation and twisting and much, much more. So while they're using resistance training as a tool to grow stronger and more flexible, they're getting that added benefit of improving strength in all of those different lengthened positions. And you can infer from that it might help reduce injury risk as well. Injury prevention is not really a thing, right? You can't just prevent injuries, but you can create a more injury resistant body so that your kid has experienced access to all these deep, weird ranges of motion, and they've grown strong in those ranges of motion. So when they're playing their sport, if they are abruptly put into a weird position that requires some flexibility, they can feel confident because they've been there before and they've lifted something heavy there before. And therefore, the sport and that sudden and abrupt and unanticipated force that they're experiencing is much less likely to hurt them. A few honorable mentions. Don't lift with your back. Well, your back was made to move. And when you see signs like lift with your legs, not with your back, there's like one time where I think graffiti is okay and it's on signs like those. But the reality is that your spine is capable of handling load and it's capable of bending and flexing both forward, backward, and side to side. And because it is capable, you should actually seek to improve its strength in those different positions. Now, people often think that when you do a lift like a squat or a deadlift that you need to keep this perfectly straight, neutral, rigid spine. But the reality is that your spine will bend and flex a little bit no matter what you try to do to keep it perfectly stiff and straight. And that's not me saying that, well, avoid a neutral spine in those lifts. It's just saying that like you can't even control the fact that your spine is bending a little bit. But there are certain lifts that actually just encourage that more bent spine position, things like Jefferson curls and Zercher deadlifts. And then there's certain side bending exercises that promote the lateral flexion of the spine. And those things are good for the spine. They make it stronger, and they make it more flexible. And so because it's helping your kid gain access to the position and it's helping them gain strength in the deepened range, it's going to help make their spine, again, more resilient to injury. And so your kid should be, with lifts that are built for it, lifting with their back in conjunction with their legs. We don't want to avoid the back. We want to make the whole system stronger. And then the last one, don't lift heavy. This one really irks me because I think a lot of parents have like a skewed view of how lifting heavy is good and bad. Think of the situation where your kids are helping you get groceries from the car. Your kid often likes to challenge themselves, or maybe you do it with them and you grab as many grocery bags as you can. And for them, it's obviously like incredibly heavy, right? But you're like, you can do it. You're cheering them on. You want them to like grab as much as they can and bring it inside. That is no different than lifting heavy in the gym. They're challenging themselves. They're exerting themselves. They're growing stronger. They're accomplishing something. And at the same time, it's like they are building strength. They're not breaking their body down by lifting heavy. Another situation, you're going for a walk in the woods and like there's a bunch of rocks and you're just trying to pick up a bunch of big heavy rocks. Like in most cases, if I'm with my son, I'm like, I bet you can't pick that rock up. And I think he would challenge me and himself, try to prove me wrong and want to go and pick up that heavy rock. Well, it's the same thing in the weight room, right? Like you want your kid to challenge themselves and exert themselves, and that doesn't necessarily make it unsafe. Again, if they're with a coach and there's structure and organization and a methodical plan by which they work up to them lifting heavy, then all is well. And again, they're like not at an increased risk of injury just because the load that they're lifting is perceived as heavy by you or by them. It is good to see what you're made of every once in a while, but that doesn't mean that you need your kid to go into the gym and test their 1 rep max every single session. But they absolutely should get acclimated to lifting heavy things, because heavy mechanical tension is one of those drivers of increased bone mineral density and connective tissue strength, also just strength in general. It's gonna help improve how their nervous system becomes coordinated and produces certain movements in a way that it once could not. They're going to be able to recruit more motor units and more muscle as they go and engage in activities in their sport and in day-to-day life, and they're gonna be better at it because they are used to and accustomed to lifting heavy. So parents, if you thought this video was helpful, do me a favor. First, like and subscribe. It helps me out a ton. It's free to you. And next, if you are in the Tampa Bay area and you have a homeschool student that is currently doing the Florida Step Up program and they've got access to either a PEP or a Unique Ability Scholarship, you need to know that I am an approved service provider in the EMA marketplace. So if you're looking for a way to use those funds for physical education, I'm an approved provider. It's in-person small group coaching where the sessions are capped at 6 students. I've got elementary, middle, and high school sections carved out Monday through Friday at the time of this video. The sessions are fun. They're about an hour a piece. We work on plyometrics and Olympic lifting variations and all the big lifts like squatting, benching, deadlifting, and a bunch of other variations. We play games. It's a good time. The kids have fun. They work hard and they get stronger. If you want to learn more about that, go ahead and click the link in the description to my Google site, Power Stone Strength and Performance. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video.